Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Today is August 10th, 2021, and I just wanted to make a very quick video telling you guys a few things. We had our big meeting today, and we kind of went through where we're at and progress with smart contracts. Everything seems to be on track, looking really good, and we were haggling over when are we going to cut the final release of the mainnet candidate and how much QA time. So we had a lot of discussions with partners and other people, and it looks like we are on track for Friday to announce the date. But we have the date internally. We're going to survive the entire week and make sure nothing changes, and we'll feel very comfortable with it. It is, I think, a very achievable date, and I think the community is going to be quite happy about it. But I just had the meeting and we went back forth over everything. And I thought you guys would be really happy to hear that on our side internally, we have certainty and a lovely little chart that you guys can share. And so I'll make sure that Nigel cleans it up and makes it pretty for Friday. So Friday, we'll have the mid-August update. Hopefully we'll get a link to share tomorrow or the day after. And I'd love to see you guys there, and we'll be able to announce when the Alonzo hard fork is going to happen. And at that point, you can run smart contracts on Cardano. Congratulations. How about that? It will be before the before the Cardano Summit, just to give you some boundings there. And I think you guys will be very happy with the date and time. And we feel real comfortable and confident with it. I wish I could tell you right now, filled with joy about it. But I can't because we're saving that for Friday. However, I can announce the announcement and pull a Justin Sun in that respect. So there you go. It's been a long journey, and we're just filled with jubilance and a little bit of bittersweet exhaustion as well here at IO Global. It took 6 years to conceive the project to get to this point. 2 programming languages, tons of design, paper after paper, an enormous amount of work. And it's just the privilege of a lifetime seeing all these different components come together. And there's a lot of them. It's such a challenging upgrade because it's not like a node and then other vendors build infrastructure on top of it. There's this enormous stack. There's the node, the wallet backend, Daedalus, GraphQL, Rosetta, DB Sync, and dozens of other components, and over 100 different users of the software at that level, excluding the thousands of stateful operators who've been working on it. But Alonzo Purple launched, and the node has been remarkably stable, and things have looked fairly good. Really, it's come down to a situation where feature completeness, I think, will be achieved by Monday next week. And then it's a question of how much testing and burn-in time and integration time do you want to give partners? So we had to kind of get a sense of all of that. And we think the dates we're proposing are reasonable. And we're going to see how quickly the exchanges get onboarded this week. And that's the final go, no go on the date that we have. But there is a date, at least on the global side, and that will be solicited and consolidated amongst all the partners. And by Friday, it will be converged and confirmed, or an alternative will be chosen. But regardless, it is within what we expected, what the community expects. It's before the conference, which is good. It's always nice to have something to talk about at the conference. And I think everybody's going to be pretty happy with it. There's a lot more to do after the HFC event. It's just a beginning, not an end, because people are going to be building things. And when they build things, they're going to want more features and functionality and better libraries and these things. But that's part of an iterative development cycle. And we've talked a lot about what happens after Alonzo. Well, there's Genesis and peer-to-peer. We've been rolling out peer-to-peer systematically with the help of the SPOs because it's something that you kind of have to get right, or else you break the network, and it's very hard to put the network back together. So we've been extremely conservative on that rollout, but the peer-to-peer governor's in place, and that's something that's on schedule. And then there's also Genesis, which is an enhancement to the chain selection rule of Warburg-Prowse. And then there's some enhancements to the way that the UTXO is stored and optimizations in the smart contract model. All those components together are a very good 1.0 product, and it's exactly what we expected to deliver in the Cardano 2020 roadmap. Hydra can be built as a layer 2 protocol like Prism that sits on top of Cardano. And we have a full-time team working on that. We keep adding resources to that team, and their velocity is getting good. And there's some great papers that have been written there, and now they've been turned into great prototypes. And we'll have a lot to show for you guys and the utility track of the IO at the Cardano Summit. And Mithril, we've gotten several great proposals to implement it from great vendors to work with us to accelerate its implementation. And we're right now just in negotiations over particulars about time horizons and expectations and so forth. But that's a high priority implementation as well. And then, of course, there's a huge amount of work on the Voltaire track, most notably in the Catalyst side. And those funds continue to roll out. And we have a whole team with a partner called Obsidian who's working on the update system, the on-chain update system on the main chain. So really, we've seen great progress with Voltaire. We've seen great progress with the Basho agenda. And all this work is going to conclude Goguen. And then a lot more to add, but partners are already talking about all kinds of cool things. And RV will have a big update for you guys. And Yella's coming along, K's coming along, Alpha Frontier's coming along, and a lot of use and utilities coming. What's really exciting is what you guys community are doing. And come soon, we're going to see a lot of stuff deployed on Cardano, and we're going to learn a lot from it. And you, the community, are going to provide a lot. And so there's some surprises, I'd say, at the Cardano Summit. We tried to save a few things for that, and I think you guys would be happy about it. But overall, I'm just happy to see this finally come to fruition. It for a long time has felt like I'm an incomplete person. You know, it's an incomplete protocol, and it's damn good to actually see that coming. So I tune in on Friday, and guys, it'll be a good day, good event, and then we just got to get it done. You know, we know what to do. It's quantified. Everybody has their work packages. There's not going to be a lot of sleep during crunch time because there's so much stuff, and everybody's on edge because there's only so much testing you can do and so much validation you can do. And, you know, we at some point have to say, okay, it is what it is, and flip the switch and hope for the best, like we did with Byron the Shelley and so forth. And we feel confident in the process, the use of formal methods, the use of property-based testing, the engineering that we followed, and ultimately the knowledge and competencies of the team. And this is a code base we've been working on as a company for over 3 years, all handwritten, 100% new code, and we understand a lot about it. And you know, we've been navigating it for a long time. So that team is quite exhausted, but quite excited at the same time to finally see this turn on and get done. And ultimately, I think it fulfills the promise and dream that Haskell had in the 1980s about being a mainstream programming language. You know, the reality is that Haskell had to find its killer application, kind of like Ruby did with Rails or any of these other projects. And I'm extremely glad to see Haskell enter into the smart contract space through Plutus. You know, just today there was a $600 million hack. And every week there seems to be one. And this is because of a lack of ability to formally specify things and produce good, rigorous engineering. And there are some companies like CertiK and others that are definitely adding to the Ethereum stack and attempting as best they can. But this is a case of where the tools and languages work against you in your attempt to write correct software. Whereas what we've created, I think, works with you, the developer, and helps you along to get to an assurance level that you feel comfortable with relative to the value at risk and the consequences of failure of the application. So that story has yet to be told, and now it's going to be told through you, the developers. Now, Plutus and Haskell are not magic. You can write bad code in it. In fact, we learned that with the early days of Byron. So it doesn't prevent you from not knowing what you're doing and going crazy routes and poorly designing architecture and so forth. But what it does do is if you have the skills and knowledge and will, it helps you get to where you want to go in a very concise way and a very provable way. And part of the deal is, in addition to building Plutus, is talking a lot about the different assurance levels of smart contracts and how one can approach building a high assurance smart contract and creating a community expectation of that. It is my belief that if someone in the future, not today, but in the future, months from now, wants to receive Catalyst funds to build a dApp, the community should push back and say, if you're going to do this, what assurance level should we expect? It's our duty to make sure that those assurance levels are mapped out and give rigorous definitions of what you should expect. And then it's the community's job to decide what is reasonable for their funds. After all, Catalyst belongs to you. That's community funds. And if the system works well, there should be many ways to do that, and those will best fit the needs of the engineer. And then what will happen is, amongst the certified and verified groupings of software on our platform, those will work for the most part as intended, and they just work. And you don't have to worry too much about that. Just like you don't worry too much about your airplane that you sit on, because you understand that the people who built it and the people who regulate it and the airlines that operate it, all of them are held to very rigorous and high standards. So it's very rare for accidents to happen. They certainly do, but relative to car accidents and train accidents and any other mode of transportation, it is the safest because of that reason. And similarly, we should treat our financial applications the same way. This is not to say that hacks won't happen with Cardano applications. It will. And I predict that when it happens, the media is going to go and say, see, Cardano's not secure. They lied to you this entire time. The nuance will be that the hacks and problems will occur in uncertified software and applications that people build that aren't rigorously debugged or checked. And as with any open system, you can't prevent that. The reality is that if it's open, anybody can build on it. You can't control who builds on it. And so you can't control people maliciously or incompetently writing software that can create problems for people. But the existence of certified software against known standards and auditing means that the consumer can have a visual representation and proof objects that demonstrate the difference between something that is known to be reliable and something that is unknown. And then you can make consumer choices accordingly, just like you do in all your day-to-day consumer choices. From the medicine you buy, to the car you drive, to the home you live in, to the location of where your house is, et cetera, et cetera. And hopefully we can communicate that as developers, and we can communicate that at the conference upcoming in September. So it's going to be a long journey from here on out because it's a beginning. When smart contracts start, there's a whole ecosystem to build. But I take great solace in the fact that thousands of you are ready to go. And the thousands of you ready to go are going to build the killer apps, which really change the brand reputation of the chain. And it will gradually go from a spooky ghost chain to a juggernaut that really dominates the industry. And from there, the next wave of people will come, and the next wave of people will come, and thousands will turn to tens of thousands, and that'll turn to hundreds of thousands. We will continue the Plutus Pioneers program, and we'll continue upgrading and scaling and augmenting it, especially after Plutus hardens to 1.0. We will continue updating and creating things like the Prism Pioneers program and dedicated education for Marlowe. And our goal is to continue having class sizes in the thousands to inclusively get more and more developers. There's been also 154 projects funded by Catalyst. And as Catalyst grows, it's entirely possible before the end of the year, over 300 will be funded. And next year, over 1,000 at this rate of growth. So that's a great growth engine for projects and applications in our ecosystem. And again, completely community curated. What we can do is add support, just like the certification levels for software. The support will come from incubation, acceleration, audit and oversight, and other services that we can bring in, and the community can eventually finance and maintain for the benefit of the community, and helping them make better decisions and holding people accountable once they have received the community's money, because that's a public trust and it needs to have proper oversight to it. So thank you all for being part of this family and this effort. And thank you for being here through this very long, drawn out process. It was a very necessary one in my view, and we've done something incredibly novel. Honestly, there aren't many cryptocurrencies in the ecosystem that have accomplished what Cardano has. You know, the reality is that we are in the top 5, and we will stay there for the foreseeable future as we continue to grow and make progress. And we're starting to see the same kinds of integrations that Ethereum has and Bitcoin has. And we're starting to be that third choice in this ecosystem of ideas. And in the next 3 to 5 years, everyone is upgrading. Bitcoin is getting Lightning, and that's growing at a nice pace. And there's a very good reality that Simplicity and Jet will one day work its way into Bitcoin, giving Bitcoin some level of smart contract capabilities at the layer 1 with Taproot at the layer 2. These two things together probably create a decent smart contract ecosystem. Combining with Ethereum going to Ethereum 2, that's going to have a superior smart contract ecosystem to the incumbent experience. And then obviously all the things we have planned as an ecosystem, it's really going to be a clash of the titans in that respect. And it's going to be fun to watch. Now, we have a lot of future-proof plans like Omega and Mithril and where Hydra can take us. And we have thought a lot about how to create a balanced and holistic ecosystem, like the concepts of RealFi, which we're going to introduce at the conference. And hopefully it's going to percolate its way through, just like third generation cryptocurrency did, in things like having governance as a service, Babel fees, these types of things, which we think are essential for layer ones to stay viable. But ultimately, what makes these platforms great is not the technology or the evangelists at the top. Rather, it's you, the community. And the difference between Ethereum and Bitcoin and us is that you're in charge. And it's explicitly made so by Catalyst and the whole Voltaire campaign. Every single day, the community not only gets more control, but the community also gets more knowledge and capability. And in many cases, actually compensates for things that they consider to be deficits, either in marketing or technology. For example, like CardanoUpdates.com or Cardano Wall or Pool Tool. We saw this a lot in the early days of Bitcoin as that ecosystem grew and evolved because there was no coordinating force to do that. So people picked up a shovel and they did it themselves. And it's incredible to see that level of growth and progress and evangelism. And that's what gives me hope that we're going to be around in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And what's nice is our foundations are superior to Bitcoin and Ethereum's. We have much more rigorous foundations. We have a much more sensible way about how to evolve the protocol and the tools necessary to evolve the protocol. We're much more inclusive. We have the capacity to pay for the bills the protocol encumbers. And there's an incredible ecosystem of developers. And a lot of this bespoke, exotic technology that we invested heavily in over time will become more mainstream. And over time, I think, become the dominant force in the space because it has built-in advantages, which I think are required when people enter regulated, insured, and Fortune 500 government adoption, which is where the majority of users are going to be coming from. A single deal with Microsoft or Apple could bring 2 billion users into a cryptocurrency. And when you live in realities like that, it really is a question of how do you build enough assurance where people at that scale would feel comfortable coming in. And then what's nice is you have your cake and eat it too, because the base level, the everyday virality, we have a lot of things to offer people, from being a stateful operator to delegation to participation in Catalyst. And that keeps growing every single day. So all things considered, I'm quite happy today about how things have panned out and shaped up. There were a lot of rough times in the last 6 years. They've been, frankly, the hardest of my life, absolutely brutal. And it's been brutal for everyone in the company because there was so much uncertainty and excess work, and the scope always changed on us. And there were some difficult decisions along the way, like having to rewrite all the code. The original plan was to have a high assurance code base that we would eventually get to towards the end of the deadline. And in the meantime, use a fast moving prototype code base. And when it became clear that that code base was actually a hindrance to our ability to operate, we had to completely throw it away and replace it with the Byron reboot. That set us back by over 1.5 years. And we didn't even know that that was the price we were going to pay up front. We thought it was going to be about 6 months. Shows the naivety of planning. And there were a lot of other things that took a little bit longer than we thought they were going to take for a variety of reasons. But we overcame those challenges together as a community. And we built a lot together as a community. And we've gotten to a point where plans now have certainty in the days to weeks. And that means that No longer, if we miss something, do we have to wait 3 months or 6 months or 9 months? Rather, it's next week instead of this week. That's a pretty remarkable thing. Furthermore, we've made enormous improvements to Haskell itself, from the underlying infrastructure to libraries to our ability to navigate and discuss with domain experts in the space, to the extent that when we need something, we know who to call, they pick up the phone, and it's a negotiation, as we did, for example, with the Mithril implementation. And it's a very different time as a consequence. We also see a lot of diversity. For example, the development of the Rust serialization library, and my hope is that's going to grow into a full Rust client, hopefully maintained by DC Spark. And we should be able to do that in the next roadmap. These kinds of things create resiliency inside the ecosystem, and they get us to a position where we're ultimately stronger in every respect. And those roots are deep now and quite fertile, and they just require a little tender love and care and watering in order for us to get to where we need to go. So all those things are things we accomplished over the last 6 years, and we have great philosophies about how to think about software now, how to design software, design APIs, design interfaces, and communicate with vendors. Remember, on a regular basis, we communicate with hundreds of different vendors and infrastructure providers, DApp providers, and there's a whole process in place for that. That was not in place 4 years ago, but it's now here. And because of that, you can amplify the project, and the rate of progress will continue to grow, not slow down. And as a consequence, next year, we can do far more than what we did this year. And this year was our most successful year in terms of reliable delivery to market. So that's a remarkable achievement if you think about that. And we've also broadened our research base considerably. And some of the investments that we're making will give us access to some of the brightest minds in the world, and the ability to bring those minds into the cryptocurrency space to help us work on some of the hardest problems inside the space. And we've gotten to a point where a lot of protocols are being refined now for their final form, where we believe that those protocols will be in service for years or decades, as opposed to 6 months or two, or maybe 2 or 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, these types of things. We just didn't have that before, and that's amazing to see. We do benefit from collaborations with other blockchains, and we've made some relationships and partnerships with them. Hopefully, we'll be able to announce those relationships at the conference, the upcoming conference in September, and I think we can. And we're going to continue the outreach program. Ergo, for example, was a phenomenal relationship, and I'm very proud of what Alex Chirpinoy has done. And we've used Ergo a lot to explore DEXs and stable coins and other things, kind of like Microsoft using Apple computers back in the day when they were prototyping software on the Xbox 360. Sometimes products made by other people can help you make your own products great. And that's exactly what we did with Ergo. And it's been a great relationship in that respect. And we've learned a lot from other cryptocurrencies and ecosystems. And we've had tons of friendly interactions, and some not so friendly, but still productive nonetheless. For example, the work we've done in Ethereum Classic has given us a domain and expertise of the Ethereum protocol that few firms have, because we built a full node. And we also hand wrote an Ethereum virtual machine. So these types of things pay huge dividends, especially when we eventually get interoperability with the Pond, which is the Ethereum virtual machine and Solidity. And that will be brought to you guys, the developers, for your interoperability efforts. So a lot to do. Still have a lobster on my mic, and I'm pretty excited about the future. I'm pretty fired up about it. But today was a really good day. It was nice to see the team come together, talk around a lot of really complex issues, and think deeply about what was the most mature, responsible, and reasonable timeline. And on Friday, you guys get what I get, because that will then be confirmed by the partners, and people be very comfortable. And we make sure that things like Yoroi don't get left behind and in the process of upgrade. And I think everybody's on the same page. So it's going to be a fun week. And I will see you guys on Friday. Cheers.